Welcome to Off the Record. I'm Sloan Brown, and with me today is Britt Arnold, who is the president of Tagler Construction and Supply, and Mick Arnold, who is the president of Arnold Packaging. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Of course, it's not a coincidence that you both share the same last name.
No, not a coincidence at all. It's actually very planned and very much by design, and I think we realized it pretty early on.
Well, this is kind of why the reason I'm talking to both of you. You both are presidents of your own companies. You have both been a couple for a number of years. You just got married in October, and you both have moved your companies to the same shared space in Trade Point Atlantic.
All correct.
Now, for the rest of us out there who think about how we could possibly be also combining so much of our professional interests with our personal, there are a lot of us going, yikes, I'm not sure I could do that. You guys embrace that and it works for you.
Yeah, Sloan, I think that's the only way it really does work for us. And we met through business. So for those of you listening that are not familiar with what Mick and I do in our separate companies, we sell construction materials, and Mick's company, one side of their business is making custom crates and boxes for aerospace and different industries, which he can get in further depth. But so we initially started selling Mick's company lumber. And it was as simple as that. And that's how we met. And that's how our relationship formed. So it started with business and then it turned personal. So I think we went into knowing each other from a business perspective and it just blossomed from there. So it really, really works for us. And that's the only thing we know.
Yeah. And also too, there's just a ton of alignment. I mean, we realized early on that we were doing the same thing. And while our companies were in different spots, Arnold Packaging will be 89 years old next year, and Britt just celebrated the 5th year of her company. We're still a lot of alignment in what we were trying to do. I mean, we have a new startup division here, which has a very startup feel to it. It's very scrappy, a lot of proof of concept. So the things that I was experiencing in the startup were the same things that Britt had gone through for the last 5 years. And we connected on a lot of different pieces of the business, what we were doing and what we were trying to accomplish. And I was able to bring to the table and the conversation some of our time-tested, proven strategies and tactics that Britt grabbed a hold of and integrated into her growth and her business in the 3 years since we've been together. And I took away, some of the scrappiness. I mean, our biggest concern for our company is being older, a little more established, is that we get lazy. We take our eye off the ball, we lose the ability to be scrappy. So we were borrowing from each other real time. And she was saying things that were resonating with me. And I'm thinking, oh boy, did we lose that skill? Are we still the way we were in 1934, 5, 6 when we started? Or have we gotten a little slow? Have we lost some agility? Have we taken some things for granted? And there was just any number of conversations that would happen like that, where we were both having aha moments. Me learning from Britt as a newer business and her learning from me and our organization with some of the things that were a little more established, process, time tested. Some things that I certainly didn't learn until much later in my career, having to figure it out the hard way most of the time.
Now, you guys have just both moved your companies and you now share a space, correct, at Trade Point Atlantic. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we do. So we had been in our former facility on Washington Boulevard for 21 years. I moved us out of a couple of buildings, Hanover Street, where we were for 50 years of our company. And we had moved into another facility. And we've gone through expansion in an interesting way where we generally would break a component of our business out and then move into a bigger space and put everything back together. And I've done that 3 times in my career. Most recently, we started an automation business about 4 years ago. They had their own standalone space. We were looking to put it back together. Trade Point was a very logical choice with what's going on in this park and facility, what's going on in Maryland in general, what's going on with ports and the challenges with supply chain. And the more and more we talked about it, it was just an absolute no-brainer that Britt would consolidate her business here. We would be able to share resources. At the same time, Tegler Construction Supply is providing all the infrastructure. So the massive concrete pipes that are bringing water in and sewage out, that's all her business. So we moved on to a site where they're her customer. And, we hope to be the strategic packaging partner for a, 3,000 acre facility, the biggest one in North America.
Well, especially Britt, because as Mick mentioned, your company has actually been involved in the construction of Trade Point Atlantic, correct?
Correct, very much so. So I look out my window right there. That's one of our job sites. We have 3 current contracts just in this park alone, with 2 more upcoming. So we're literally in the trenches, boots on the ground right here. We can just help our customers, and we expect and hope to be a part of many of the projects in this park. So that's really exciting. And then too, like Mick said, just sharing the resources and being able to utilize both companies to help each other and to grow together is something. And like Mick and I say, it's an interesting time because it's COVID and so many people are starting to work more remote. And here Mick and I are doubling down on space and having people come into a building. And what we are really big on, both Mick and I, is generating a culture. And the people that we work with, I mean, they are like, people like to keep professional and personal apart. That's not who we are. Like, the people we work with are our friends. I hate to go as far to say family, because that can get a little bit, they're our friends. And we want to create this really inviting, fun culture where people can have a wonderful quality of life, love coming to work. And it's the Tegler and Arnold culture combined. And that's what we've been creating for the last couple of years. And we hope to continue to create. And we think it's something special. And that's what we're going for here. And now we have a beautiful space to be able to do that.
So how do you mentioned COVID, how have you guys kind of dealt with that whole thing? Not only that both of you have businesses that both have a hands-on perspective, but you've got to keep your people safe. So and you've also you're both in the supply business. We've all heard all these stories about the supply chain problems. So I can't imagine, how are you juggling all of that?
Listen, we've been at it the whole time. We have not shut down. We have not, we've gone remote. We've been sensible. We had plastic screens all over when that was the wisdom of the moment. We masked. Heck, Britt and I started a mask business from our couch along the way and sold a few 100,000 masks that were reusable. And so it's been a wild ride. I mean, we've taken a lot of great practice away from COVID. I mean, we will, laugh, not in a disrespectful way, but say the gift that keeps on giving, right? We've had to figure out new supply chains. We've made new partners. We've gotten more efficient. I mean, COVID made us a better competitor than we were going in.
Britt, yeah, I was kind of wondering if it sounds like a lot of the lessons that you've kind of learned, through COVID are actually really good lessons helping the businesses in general.
Absolutely. As Mick just left off, as a segue, I mean, we've had to diversify because supply chain has been so hard. So it's looking at working with different manufacturers and vendors than we normally have. And a lot of those have, we've created new partnerships that are lasting and are going to be.
What new perspective has this experience with COVID brought to each one of you personally? And not just about how you deal professionally, although I'm curious about that, but also, have you learned anything about yourselves in this whole process? And of course, this is also combined with the two of you getting married, which is another learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Sure. For me, it's been really interesting because as we talked about, I just started the business at the very end of 2016. So we're still very young, and I am focusing on building the business while all of this happens. And immediately I was put in, not that I haven't always had to be, but put into this immediate position where I really had to be a leader and a manager. My team and the people that I care for and I am taking care of, they don't know what they're worried, and they need the reassurance that they're going to be okay, the company's going to be okay, and all these things. So while I have my head in the trenches and I'm working in the business, all of a sudden I have to figure a way to keep the business going, streamlined, but then also step into this leadership role that above and beyond what I have been able to do to this point, and make sure I'm really leading in a way that I need to lead. So, and it's been amazing to watch Mick, because I think that's really one of Mick's strong points, is his ability to communicate and to have the hard conversations and lead a variety of different people in a really positive way. So watching him manage that has definitely helped me to do the same. And I know my team has appreciated it, and it's just made me a better leader overall.
Is there anything about that you've kind of surprised yourself about, like, wow, I didn't think I could do that, or wow, I didn't know I had that part of the aspect of me, or, you know?
Yeah, and I've said this about myself. I mean, I think I've always led by example. You know, I know I'm going to be. I pride myself on working the hardest. Like there's nobody in the company that would ever look and say, well, you know, she's not working the hardest in the company, head down. But I never was sure that I was the best at managing people. I knew I could lead by example. I knew I could get things done. I know I always execute. But the management piece was just something I wasn't sure. In my other roles, I very much so, although I worked for corporate companies, it was super entrepreneurial, and I was often in this hybrid position where I was very independent. So I worked with a bunch of people, but never really had to manage a large group of people. So that I just hadn't tested that skill as much. But I think when push came to shove and I knew I had to step up and be a voice and a leader in that way and make reassuring my team, it put me in that position. I was forced to be in that position. And I hope I thrived, and I'm learning as I go and building upon that skill. But yeah, I also learned that I liked to be in that position, and so still working on it, improving, hoping to improve every day. But that's something I definitely learned.
And Mick?
Yeah, same. Listen, I think that that leadership word was huge. I talked about, you know, the communication aspect and being very intentional and not assuming that everybody was on the same page. And look, our culture here is very autonomous. I mean, Britt was just talking about how the role she's had historically, she's had a tremendous amount of autonomy. We give our teammates a ton of autonomy. We have a saying around here that we micromanage the hiring process because we will not micromanage the working process. So, you know, it would be easy to just stay in that same mode where you give everybody a lot of latitude, and you know, you're certain that you've given them the mission and you've reviewed it and you've assigned metrics to it, and that would be good enough. But in those moments, it's not, you know, because there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of lack of clarity, there's a lot of noise. So we were intentional about, you know, the communication portion, making sure that everybody know that we had a plan, you know, and listen, there were times when I wasn't sure we had a great plan. I didn't always know if that plan was going to be the best, but it just resonated with the individuals that we were talking to. And listen, sometimes the plan would change Monday to Monday. There would be a whole new data set that would come out from Monday at 9 o'clock when we broke that meeting until the next Monday when we would get together. And we were constantly pivoting, right? So the word resilience comes to mind. I mean, that's something that we certainly recognize that we had, but these high-speed pivots, and those were possible because of how much commitment that we had.
You think there are some kind of important business lessons or things that you guys learned professionally that have really now helped you in your personal relationship? And you know, there are a lot of people, married people out right, or even non-married right now, that are going, okay.
I think the 3 words that have come out a lot today would be communication, sharing, collaboration. That's the same thing we do at home. There's no difference. And whether that's the business side or daily wins or whatever that thing is, that same exact piece that we use everywhere, we also use at home.
Okay, so what happens when you have a fight? You guys are, you know, your personal and professional lives, like, what do you do?
This is gonna upset everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, truly, Sloan. This is, I mean, I'm honestly, we've never fought. So, I mean, okay, we just don't, we communicate. I'm not saying we don't have disagreements. We do. That's what often, you know, that's what partnership's all about. But we've just never had a fight where we couldn't talk through it and work it out. And it's never affected business. That's for sure. It never will.
No.
So, and that's the honest truth.
Yeah, no, it is the truth. I mean, there's just such a high respect level and such a value of time that we just would never waste one more second of energy in whatever that thing was, which is almost always trivial anyway. It's trivial enough that if you just compromise and listen, you can't get past it.
And two, we have too much not that it would change anything, but we have too much responsibility. We're accountable for too many people to ever let something like that get in the way. And we would never do that. I mean, we are respectful and responsible for organizations and people that we care deeply about.
Well, it's pretty amazing. There's it's fascinating. It sounds like you guys have learned a lot through with what the two of you have been together. It also sounds like the rest of us could learn a lot from you too. Even just this little snippet, I really appreciate you both taking the time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Slim.
and thanks so much.